extremists. Moreover, the growing sophistication of scientists and engineers in the developing world, some of whom will be bound for disappointment when hoped-for job opportunities are not there, will drive these underemployed young men toward fringe political and religious movements threatening to put chemical or biological or nuclear weapons in the hands of skilled terrorist international actors. Thus, our intelligence and security duties will become all the more difficult to carry out successfully. Further, the spread of gender equality in Muslim lands and corresponding resentments by traditionalists in those lands, together with continued economic disparities between Western industrialized societies and Muslim nations which do not internally distribute oil wealth, together with disruptions caused by expected water shortages or by possible U.S. development of available alternative energy sources, all these together can contribute to the perceived sense of unfairness that can drive terrorist attacks against the United States. These are not facets of fantasy, but they are open source derived, reasonable predictions about the context in which we and our children will live in the not-distant future. If there is something better than a fusion center, a MIAC, a multi-agency, multidisciplinary approach to information acquisition and analysis, and all hazards planning and intelligence distribution, I haven't heard of it, but I welcome its development. If you think back on the 9/11 attacks, the perpetrators received their financing from the Middle East. They did their planning in Germany. They did their flight training in the United States. And they fine-tuned their operation in a meeting in Malaysia. Why? They wanted to keep the pieces of the puzzle as dispersed as possible. They chose a face-to-face setting rather than talking on the phone or via internet communications. They went to a place where they could quietly get into and out of with relatively little notice, leaving minimal footprints for intelligence agencies to track. They were successful because of the fragmentation of activities. They don't just learn from failure, they learn from successes too. We can expect continued and increased fragmentation by terrorist groups, which in turn mandates integration on the part of law enforcement. So we can work together to develop a picture of how and why others are trying to attack us. The fusion centers, or MIAC, are essential in that role. The will to win is not the most important thing. The will to prepare to win is the most important. We must have the discipline to prepare for the next attack and take the necessary steps to prevent it. People who are disciplined enough to say, memorize the Quran or attempt to, or to pray 5 times a day every day are pretty darn disciplined. I tell people, you better work to get or keep those people on our side. How disciplined will you be? Our security as a nation depends on us, the American people, pulling ourselves together and accepting the responsibilities of moral and political leadership that history has intended for us to bear. I implore our executive leaders and our legislators to set aside partisanship and accept that responsibility. With that, I do want to emphasize that I've got a great number of materials here. Some of the questions that have been asked already, I think perhaps just my display, I can show you some things that the federal government is applying to the fusion centers around the country. There are minimum criminal intelligence training standards. There are fusion center guidelines. We have the guidelines on Dist that make them available to everybody who works at a fusion center. Fusion centers receive training at conferences, as you've heard already from our guest from Illinois. There's a wide range of information available on the internet, and I would suspect that at least some of the staffers, if not every person on the committee, has had a chance to check that. But on the DHS, the Homeland Security site, under fusion centers and intelligence sharing, they have available to you the baseline capabilities for major urban fusion centers, the National Criminal Intelligence Sharing Plan, the fusion center guidelines, so law enforcement, public safety, and the private sector, fusion center guidelines, law enforcement intelligence, public safety, and the private sector complete resource CD, which is again available online, and the fusion center guidelines in a full text PDF file. The amount of information that exists as people try to work out this relatively new development of fusion centers is somewhat daunting. We almost need a fusion center to fuse together that information to help guide the MIAC. One of the things that has been mentioned, and because I didn't work at the MIAC and I didn't go there on a daily basis, I don't know exactly how they proceeded, but having a privacy attorney or a civil liberties or privacy protection component, which, for example, I know that the MCAC, which is the MIAC equivalent in Maryland, has such a civil liberties board, and it includes a retired judge, I think a practical academic or two, or involved, and some attorneys or two, and they kind of review the information. that comes out of the MCAC, and I forget what that exact acronym is for, but the fellow who was my equivalent, Harvey Eisenberg, is a very open fellow. The committee or staff could contact Mr. Eisenberg and get details on that, I'm sure, and because it's worked successfully. I think the MCAC in Maryland has been one of the leaders in the country in terms of the MIAC, as I said, was one of the leaders too. Whether this particular report was a stumble or not, people can differ on that, but the fact of the matter is, if it upset enough people that some kind of change needs to be made, it needs to be a wise change, not one that sets us back. And so, for the reasons I've suggested, I think that whatever the committee chooses to do or not do, as long as it involves the kind of multi-agency consensus-style management, you will do the citizens of the state a favor and protect us all the more if you take that approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fagan. Help me to think like a criminal here for just a moment, if you would. It's been a few months since I first reviewed the report. I heard that.
Take the question, you're going to think like criminal.
No questions for the joke. No, I'm just kidding. Our military personnel returning from combat